So it sounds like everyone wants to blame this whole run-up that we've had over the past few months on SoftBank, which doesn't it seem like that guy from SoftBank just wants to be in the news? Like he had his own, like he felt a little bad because WeWork had just totally dropped off the map. So the FT had this thing, and they called it the NASDAQ whale that bought billions of dollars of derivatives based on the NASDAQ 100 and the call options on those stocks that are included in it. Do you think this is, I mean, does this mean anything?
When in doubt, blame derivatives. So Sentiment Trader and Ben Eifer were all over this. So here's what was going on. Yes, SoftBank bought $4 billion worth of options, but a lot of it was call spreads, meaning they were buying one and selling another. So the notional amount was oftentimes neutral. So there wasn't any effective buying pressure. And they were buying it 3 to 6 months out. So that's what SoftBank was doing. On the other hand, you have retail traders, not just Robinhood traders, but retail traders that bought $40 billion worth of premium. And a lot of that is like 2 weeks, 1 week or 2 week. So the amount of gamma in those names was enormous. And gamma is like, it's like the steroid on the steroid. So gamma is what affects the delta, which is what affects how many shares the option makers need to buy or sell to hedge their position.
And I've gone cross-eyed.
Exactly. So when this is coming in, when you're buying weeklies and the stock is moving so much, that becomes self-fulfilling. And maybe not self-fulfilling, but if that feeds on itself.
Right. I think
whereas what SoftBank was doing, the $4 billion that SoftBank was buying and selling way out 3-6 months isn't what was moving in the market.
Let's blame the WeWork guy makes for a way better story than people all over the place have been and continue to speculate. So, I mean, if you look back at the stuff for the 1987 crash, not saying this is that, obviously, the biggest reason that we had that fall is because stocks were up so much leading into it. There didn't have to be the straw that broke the camel's back. Stocks were up like 45 or 50% in the first 9 months of the year and almost had to have a fall, and then that cascaded on top of itself. But I think that...
Yeah, actually, do you know what month it is?
Uh-oh. We're getting there, huh?
That's right, folks. October is just around the corner.
One of the things that I never would have tracked in the past, but now I'm watching because people are talking about it in the real estate market, lumber prices went from $300 to $900 through this thing, and now they've quickly fallen back to like $600. And it's another one of those things where that ball just got rolling, and speculators took it and went crazy, and now it's backfilling. And this, to me, actually feels like a healthy correction for a lot of this stuff.
Well, it feels healthy for you because you're in target date funds.
I own a bunch of tech stocks in my Robinhood account, and
if you bought tech stocks last week, this doesn't feel too healthy.
Yeah, true. But I think healthy in the fact that the stuff that was going on was not healthy. That was unhealthy to me. That was a binge. This coming back, and I mean, if you felt like you missed out on some of these names, guess what? Here you go.
Traders drank too many tech stocks, and now they're throwing up, and there's a hangover.
Yeah, which you need that though. And I made this point. How many days?
I will never drink again.
Yeah, right. Yeah, me every weekend in college. But I said to you last week, and you're my unofficial timestamp on this. I said these stocks are going to crash at some point. That's not like,
guys. Ben called it.
Yeah, but that's not like that. That's a really like a so far in advance thing to say. That's like, that's going to happen, and that happens. I looked at like all the best stocks in history, Apple and Walmart and all these. Apple's fallen over 75% 3 times. So let's say these stocks do take over the world. Peloton is the workout champion, and they totally take everything over. And Zoom becomes the next Google or something. Let's say in some far out world that happens. That's probably not going to happen, but let's say it does. Even if that happens, these companies, if they are so great, the expectations are going to become so out of whack with reality, they have to crash at some point. So even if these become the next Amazon and whatever, that crash is coming regardless. So you have to prepare yourself if you're going to be a long-term shareholder in one of these funds.
That's the thing. Who the hell is buying this for the long term?
True. Well, okay, there's a lot of speculators, but you don't think that there's some people that think, okay, in March 2020, life changed forever, and these stocks are going to... I feel like there's a lot of tech people who are like that, who say...
I do think they believe that, but it's more based on the price rather than the fundamentals of the company.
Sure.
I think that a 300% increase convinced them that this is going to continue to go up.
Right. Yeah, I still do think someday when we have the post-vaccine world, you're going to have a long, normal, short work from home, and that's going to be a glorious trade for someone that times it perfectly. I don't know when, but I think that
you're looking at him.
That's going to be you. So these SPAC companies, which are essentially the blank check companies, Bill Ackman has one, and apparently he approached Airbnb about buying them out. And so this is the idea that he would buy them out as a private company. They wouldn't have to go for an IPO. They would just become a private company because he has this SPAC, and they rebuffed him. Is this like an irrational confidence move by him? Like, can you see the employees at Airbnb signing off on, okay, yeah, we're gonna sell out to Bill Ackman's SPAC?
Ackman just pulled up from half court with 22 seconds left on the shot clock.
Doesn't it feel like? I guess I give him credit for that, but that just seems, I can't see one of these huge tech firms ever saying, yeah, let's sell out to a huge hedge fund guy. That doesn't make any sense to me. Maybe I'm wrong and they don't want to go through the whole process, but so this data from Axios looked at the weekly spends at Marriott and Airbnb, and they said Airbnb spending is running 75% higher this time than it was last year. That means for the first time, Airbnb's revenues have comfortably surpassed Marriott's for the first time.
You know what? If Airbnb was a public company, it would have declined. It would have crashed by 60%, and then it would have quintupled. Right?
Yes.
Like in March, it would have had a 60% crash, and then it would have quintupled from the lows.
So I don't know what it's going to be when they go. I think their latest valuation was in April, and that was like $26 billion or something. And that had dropped at that point because they were hurting. I don't know what's going to happen.
Do you agree with what I just said?
Oh yeah, definitely. They would have been the ones that got killed, and then you would have. And then now in this healthy correction, they would be down 20%, right? Because they got too far ahead of themselves. But
exactly.
I think out of all of these unicorn companies, I think they have the biggest chance to be the next Facebook-esque success stories. And I'm horrible at guessing this stuff. Obviously, this is not advice, but Facebook came out as a $100 billion valuation. I don't think Airbnb will be that big. Let's say it's $50 billion. I don't know how big. I'm
a paper buyer on the IPO.
I think they could be
a paper account.
I think that they could use this as a springboard and take over a huge chunk of the leisure hospitality industry. And I think they could be one of these huge tech firms that comes up and gets into the same realm as some of these other ones, or at least
how is this
close.
But they're not a tech company. They're not a tech company.
Okay, semantics.
No, sir.
Okay. So Amazon is a logistics company.
I mean, you're deflecting. Airbnb is hospitality.
Yeah, hospitality.
Leisure.
Yeah, with a tech bent, but
hospitality, tech, leisure, tech.
Okay.
Not everything's tech.
All right. They're a Silicon Valley company.
There you go.
How does that sound? I found what I think is the funniest podcast I've ever heard before. It's a new one called Smartless, and it's with Jason Bateman, Will Arnett, and Sean Hayes. And I heard Bateman on Dax Shepard's podcast, and so I listened to it. And I caught up on the first 8 or 9 episodes. It came out, I think, 2 months ago. And so the concept is they have 3 people, all 3 of these guys, and one of them invites a famous friend on that the other 2 don't know is going to come, and they just kind of lob questions back and forth. And you'd think with 4 people it wouldn't really work, especially since they're doing it on Zoom. It actually works flawlessly, and these guys are so sharp and quick, and I find myself multiple times with the literal LOL on this show. And so
literal?
Yes, the literal laugh out loud. By the way, I heard someone pronounce it lol recently, and kind of blew my mind.
Nope.
I had to do a double take.
Yellow flag.
But they are all so sharp and quick, and they talk about all the stuff they've been working on and how they do it. And so Robert Downey Jr. one was great. So I didn't realize he was in jail for 26 months at one point before he turned it around and got an Iron Man. You heard a lot of those stories. I've never heard many interviews with him. The Will Ferrell one was fantastic, and they did one with Maya Rudolph, which was good too. Here's a point they keep coming back to that I thought was interesting. They all agreed, and so Jason Bateman is done. He started out in comedy, and then he went to Ozark and did more drama. These people all agreed and have mentioned it more than one time that comedy is harder than drama in terms of acting. And they said drama is actually relatively easy if you toe the line in both camps. I would have thought it would have been the opposite. That comedy would be way easier, but they said trying to land that stuff and show enough enthusiasm and hit the
Speaking
punchline
of
perfectly
comedy,
and how you say it is way, way harder than drama, which gets back to our point of how they should have a comedy award at the Oscars.
Speaking of comedy, how amazing was Nicolas Cage? I think an interviewer asked him, like, how do you know when you're going over the line? And what did he say?
Like, how do you amp yourself up for scenes like that? Or is, what does the term over the top even register?
You show me where the top is, and I'll let you know whether I'm over it or not, all right? I design where the top is. Brian could speak more to this than I can. He knows how spiritual acting is for me. I don't even like the word acting anymore. I don't, because it implies lying in some way. I don't act. I feel and I imagine and I channel.
Speaking of, this inspired me. I saw on Netflix, The Frozen Ground was on. It's with John Cusack and Nicolas Cage. You ever see it?
No, it looks awful.
Not a good movie. Just not good. Bad.
Yeah, that looked... I mean, Nicolas Cage, I think, has come into some tax trouble in recent decades, so Nick, do you want to do this? Yes, I'm in.
And you know what? It could have been good. Like it was based on a true story, and those always get me. I'm a big fan of based on a true story, even if it's very loosely based. So this is 2013. It got a 61% on Rotten Tomatoes. Audience gave it a 50. I'm with the audience on this one. I'd say 50 is fair. Maybe like 45. It sucked.
Isn't it funny how people like John Cusack and Nicolas Cage and even like Bruce Willis to some degree, and I think like Travolta's probably there too, they get to a point where they just stop making good movies and then they just start making these ones that go straight to DVD or Netflix?
So I think this was a real movie, but like I'm slacking you this. Look at this picture of this of Nick Cage on the cover of this. Just like look at this and given what he said in that interview.
Yeah, that's...
By the way, that interview totally sounded like something Hansel would say.
Yes.
I don't act because I feel like that's like lying.
Yeah, I couldn't tell if he was being serious or joking. I think he was actually being serious.
Oh, that was not a joke. By the way, how about that backhanded compliment? Somebody said that they like our podcast, but fast forward to the end because basically everything we say sucks except for they like to listen to what we have to say on the recommendations.
Yes, someone listed out our like their favorite podcasts, and they said Animal Spirits. They said it's a basic concept, basic podcast. The investing is discussed but not recommended. Skip to the last 5 minutes for what they watched each week. Pretty good, because a lot of people say our recommendations are crap. So I guess I'll take it. Thanks. Okay, what do you got?
Class Action Park on HBO Max. Speaking of literal LOL, I literally LOL'd multiple times. That was very funny. It kind of reminded me.
Is it a movie or documentary?
It's a documentary. There was a water park in New Jersey where there was no rules. It was basically run by teenagers and a crazy guy that had all these wacky ideas where people got hurt, people died. And it was, remember the show on VH1, the 90s? Remember the 90s?
Oh,
love the 90s. I love the 90s.
Yeah.
Where it was just people like just sitting down, kind of pseudo-famous people talking about the 90s. That's what this was. There was like one really funny guy, and it's like 45-year-old people talk about when they were teenagers and how crazy it was. I highly recommend that. That was on HBO Max, which by the way, I don't pay for HBO Max. I get it through Verizon Fios. It's not worth paying for, but.
So technically you pay
also,
for it. It's part of your bundle.
It's a hidden fee.
Yes.
It's a hidden fee. The Boys is back on Amazon Prime. Do you watch the show?
Yeah, I watched the first season. I liked it.
Okay. So they released 3 episodes, and then it's going to be every Friday. So if you like the first season, and this is a full endorse. It's one of my favorite shows. So if you haven't watched it, I cannot recommend the show.
Probably one of the few superhero ones that I actually like.
Yeah, because so Kobe walked in the room and he saw Homelander, and he's like, and Kobe's obsessed with superheroes. He watches Spider-Man all day long. He goes, "Daddy, who's that superhero?" And I was like, "Nope."
Yeah,
I turned it off right away.
Yeah, not for kids.